reached Empress of Oracle, where we tune into all things the divine, and I'm so honored to have Geraldine Oresco here today. Lately, I've been doing a lot on trauma work and like ancestral work, and just kind of noticing, like, just feeling like if there's things that are in my life or if there's health conditions, it's passed on from a family member, and trying to work on those family members. And it kind of reminds me of what you were talking about, the collective DNA system. And I did watch your last where you had a PowerPoint and you showed, like, you know, the different things in your energy field. And something that I do, actually, I don't cut those cords. What I do is I remove them, like it's almost like whoosh, and I make like a sound, and I imagine it going into the greater central sun. And then I say this thing like into the greater central sun, across all time, dimension, space, and reality, infinite levels, high, wide, deep, and minuscule, for the highest good of everyone involved. And then I picture like those chords or whatnot going into there. And I know I haven't probably cleared everything. And, you know, as an intuitive, you can probably see my energy field, but that's for, you know, a different time. But maybe you want to talk a little bit about, you know, the collective DNA system, and if that like relates to ancestral trauma or something interesting that you're kind of learning lately about that.
Absolutely. And just so that you know, I would never tap into your energetic space without your permission. So don't worry.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I don't go around reading. Yeah, it's not good for you to do that. Yeah. So so let's talk about holographic DNA. What is holographic DNA? Holographic DNA is essentially looking at the system that writes who and what you are. We have DNA that writes protein, but in fact, that's only 3% of what DNA is actually doing. Okay, so in other words, 1 tablespoon of DNA, we are holding the entire world history. Imagine that, the entire world history that we know of, up until the furthest point that we have in record. So imagine 1 I mean, you have way more than that in your body. So what DNA is actually doing is an incredibly massive storage system of information, which we in our current science have not really understood what it's doing. But we are finally coming into an awareness that there is a system that is managing an intelligence. It's a collective intelligence in the body, a network of intelligence that's managing more than just the physical body. We hear about phantom limbs for people that use arms, for example. You know, so what we're learning actually is that we are very much this holographic system of memory. And in fact, you know, scientists have been trying to understand where is memory stored in the body, and they've done millions of experiments trying to test, you know, removing parts of the brain, and yet the little mice that they're experimenting on still remember, you know, even though they're stumbling down these mazes which they've trained in, they still remember, even if they remove, you know, 70% of the brain. So what that's telling us is that there's a holographic network that is actually storing the information. It's not stored in just one part. It's in the entire body, which is amazing, because if that's scientifically proven, and it has been, it tells us it's a wonderful, I guess it's a wonderful, research to help us understand the function of our actual healing capabilities. Another side of this, we start to talk about the morphogenetic field, which is what we were talking about, that phantom limb, because there's been several experiments, you know, on little animals that they have removed parts of their body surgically, so not something that would naturally happen in nature, and then by stimulating other parts of the organism, the body automatically knows how to create an eye. It knows that it has to build, for example, an eye. If the eye is removed, it knows how to build an eye, or whatever part of the body. And so that's telling us that the intelligence of DNA is way, way more advanced than just, you know, you're writing an arm, or you're writing, you know, the function of an arm or function of an eye. And there is something that is directing and self-organizing that information into this form and functionality. So our bodies are incredibly complex. And in fact, how does that relate to trauma now? Okay, so because we are this very complex hologram storage system, everything that we're experiencing in everyday life, we're experiencing 360 degrees. A child in the fetus, in the womb, will remember and will respond to screaming, yelling around them. And there's a very powerful video of that we just talked about recently, a couple months ago, that the child in the fetus hears the parents yelling and the child jumps, literally has a response. And they were able to test, what this emotional range of the child was. And it was essentially fear, right? The child doesn't feel safe. So if you can think about that impact, emotions are affecting the body, and they literally tell the proteins what to write in your DNA. So you are a product of everything that you've experienced emotionally, the trauma, the belief systems that you take on from your family members, but limited belief systems, all of that is encoded in the body. However, when we look at epigenetics, we understand that we are not a product and we're not married to our DNA. We can change that. So even though we have in our DNA the hereditary cancer or hereditary diseases like this, we are not married to that. We can change that. And it's been shown many, many times that the way that the person, manages their emotions, the way that they handle stress essentially, because stress is one of the most damaging things to the physical body, because it creates tremendous inflammation. It's a perfect environment for illness of any kind. And if you continue to create the environment for illness, of course, it's a little bit more complex than that. It depends on what your thought forms and what the belief systems are. They will turn on those parts of you with that illness. Okay, so for example, cancer. Or something like this. And there's a very profound complexity to the kind of illness that we have, because when you feel the pain of the illness, when you work with the information that is in that illness and you trace it back to its origin, you're going to find certain patterns of emotions that have led up to that. And not all illnesses have the same emotion, but all of them are rooted in fear. Because the two main emotions that we're navigating at this time are love and fear. And so if you're in a state of love, your body will be in a state of vitality, expansion, harmony. When you're in a state of fear, it is counter creating. The entire system is operating in an opposite direction, and so all of these molecules that are writing the well-being of this environment, they get turned off. So it's incredibly important to understand that holographic DNA allows you to provide a healthy environment in the body, but also in everything that we call junk DNA is also storing the information in the multidimensional body. The multidimensional body is the projection of your chakra system. The chakras are not just vortices that are connected at the spinal cord. It is your endocrine system, and they're also spherical. They're spherical. So we have the entire root chakra, sacral, solar, and so on and so forth. Each one of those are the antennas that are constantly interacting with your environment, and they're filtering the experiences based on your awareness. So all of that data of the things that you're picking up and the things that you're experiencing interdimensionally, all of your ancestors, all of your ETs that you've come in contact with, all of that information is in your sphere. It is in your holographic DNA. So we have access to that information, and that's what I do in DNA reprogramming. That's what I do in hypnotherapy, is that we enter into the subconscious mind and we read the holographic DNA. We read the space, and we untangle and we heal traumas. What is trauma? Just really briefly, trauma is the fragmentation of your soul, essentially. The soul is a fractal of infinite consciousness. But this fractal, this is just this physical body is just a hologram, okay? And you actually are part of millions of fractals of yourself. And those infinite fractals of yourself are experiencing an ET life, a life as Queen Elizabeth, a life as your grandmother, your great-great-grandmother that passed away. You know, you are that. She is you. So you're experiencing all those things. And we come into families based on our vibrational frequency because we're in resonance to those lineages. So when we do ancestral work, as like you were asking, we are working with ourselves in other timelines. Okay, timeline is simultaneously. Okay, just remember that there is no linear timeline. We are actually experiencing things simultaneously, which is why hypnotherapy works. We can actually access those reference points of what we think is the past is actually simultaneous and heal, and then bring that into the present moment. And that's essentially what integration means. That's what healing means. That's what activating DNA means. You know, you are becoming aware of yourself as all of those fragments. And this is how you grow. The more that becomes aware in your sphere is the more that you know, you are expanding. Your light is expanding. You're becoming aware. That's what that means. So yes, it's a very profound and very essential to understand that for healing and for everyday life, really.
Thank you.